Turning now, where two law firms held a news conference today saying they're representing more than 100 alleged victims who accused Sean Puffy Combs of sexual assault. Now, this is just the latest in the many cases pending against the rap mogul, who is still behind bars on federal charges. Now, during today's news conference in Texas, attorneys are asking for more potential victims to come forward.
There are many facets to this. The conduct we will describe today occurred over more than 20 years. There are many people and many entities involved. And we're going to follow this evidence wherever it takes us. We will find the silent accomplices. We will expose the enablers who enabled this conduct behind closed doors. We will pursue this matter no matter who the evidence implicates. These brave victims who have stepped forward deserve nothing less. The biggest secret in the entertainment industry that really wasn't a secret at all has finally been revealed to the world. The wall of silence has now been broken, and victims are coming forward. Our team has had at this point more than 3,285 individuals contact us, with people claiming to have been victimized by Sean Combs. After vetting, we now represent 120 individuals who intend to bring civil claims in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs, as well as claims against many other individuals and entities that we will name as defendants as we file these individual cases. And you should know, to the extent the clients feel comfortable, we also intend to make these individuals available to the authorities, specifically to the FBI. And you should also know a few of them have already been spoken to by the FBI. Now, before we discuss the nature of the claims and claimants themselves, let me comment on the large volume of calls we have received since our first announcement. Even before the indictment of Sean Combs, we had received a small volume of calls and had screened a handful of cases. After the indictment of Sean Combs and the announcement that we were pursuing these claims, the floodgates opened. People who wouldn't otherwise, for a variety of reasons, are now stepping forward to make their voices heard and to pursue justice. But no, most of these people are scared. They fear backlash in their communities. They fear backlash in their own families. They are afraid of retaliation from the perpetrators and their associates. They are rightly afraid for their own personal safety. I expect that through this process, many powerful people will be exposed. Many dirty secrets will be revealed. We know what we are potentially up against. And as is always the case in situations like this, when a celebrity is involved, people can be downright mean and nasty. You would be shocked at the length fans will go, no matter the evidence to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics. I've personally already been threatened multiple times on social media. And when I agreed to pursue this, I expected as much. This isn't my first rodeo. But victims who step forward to have their voices heard should not be subjected to that kind of conduct. They should not be targeted. I want to say this, and I want to be clear about it. Although we are vetting each call as stringently as we can, I always start with a mindset that I believe victims. I believe victims because I understand the tremendous courage it takes to step forward.
All right, make no mistake, we're in October. This will be the story of 2024, maybe even the story of 2025 as some of these powerful people get exposed. All right, we're going to squeeze in a break right now. When we come back, we'll hear more details on these allegations against Diddy and by more than 100 alleged victims. I think he said about 120. He got 3,200 calls. We vetted them, ended up with this 120. Keep it locked right here on your front row seat to justice.
Sport TV fans, you demanded it.
Here we go, do it.
So now you're getting more true crime at nighttime.
Oh my God, oh my God.
48 hours on Court TV. Tonight, 7/6 Central on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a former sheriff accused of shooting a judge back in court. Our teams are live from Kentucky with key takeaways from today's huge hearing.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
Welcome back, folks. We're following the press conference in Houston, Texas, where two law firms have announced that they will represent 120 alleged victims in sexual assault cases against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Combs, of course, is currently being held in jail with no bond for federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges following his arrest in September. So let's go back now into that press conference.
At the length fans will go, no matter the evidence, to the contrary, to defend celebrities they love. I mean, there's a reason for this word fans. They're fanatics. I've personally already been threatened multiple times on social media. And when I agreed to pursue this, I expected as much. This isn't my first rodeo. But victims who step forward to have their voices heard should not be subjected to that kind of conduct. They should not be targeted. I want to say this, and I want to be clear about it. Although we are vetting each call as stringently as we can, I always start with a mindset that I believe victims. I believe victims because I understand the tremendous courage it takes to step forward. So if you're watching this, please hear me. If you're out there and you have been victimized, you are not alone. There is a great strength in numbers. You can seek redress. You can obtain justice. We can help you, and we will help you. That being said, as stated, we are vetting every call that we receive. We have had to turn away some. For each, we ask for corroboration. For each, we ask for the identity of witnesses. We also have collected pictures, videos, texts. We check venues, we check dates. We want to corroborate that the claims being made have legitimacy and merit. We have on staff now a former detective from the Major Offenders Unit of Houston Police Department who is helping us vet each claim. We're using our common sense. We're being stringent because, as I said, these are not easy cases. They're very tough. The process is hard, and in some cases, the process is very lengthy. These cases are hard to prove. Many times, it's the victim's word against the alleged perpetrator. Each of these victims will no doubt be publicly attacked by the alleged perpetrators, and in some cases, the general public. The feckless and cowardly keyboard warriors love to attack. We know what we're up against. We did not enter this fray blindly. I wish it was my last such fray. I wish this type of behavior wasn't so pervasive, but it is what it is, so we will press on. As I said, our law firms have been retained by 120 individuals at this point to pursue cases in civil court against Sean Diddy Combs. You should know, in this group, it is evenly divided between males and females. There are 60 males and 60 females who have joined us to pursue these claims as plaintiffs. In this group, 62% identify as African American, 30% are white, and the remainder are Hispanic or Asian. The victims are from more than 25 states. The majority are from California, New York, Georgia, and Florida. And I want to focus on the ages of these victims. When we talk about the ages of the victims when the conduct occurred, it's shocking. Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15. 25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of. The time frame of the acts complained of is very wide. The conduct at issue spans from the years 1991 all the way till this year, 2024. If you wonder why there are so many alleged victims, that's your answer. We're talking about more than 25 years of this type of conduct. Now, although most of the victims who have stepped forward were victimized after 2015, this has been going on for a very long time. Now, when you think about the fact that some of this conduct occurred 25 years ago, and you wonder why would it take somebody so long to step forward, I want to remind you that many states in the United States have recognized that it's very difficult for a victim to step forward and to make these types of allegations when something very terrible has happened to them. I'll use New York, the state of New York, as an example. The state of New York has specific statutes in place that revive claims that are even claims that would typically be not able to be brought, that it revives such claims and they can be brought even 25 to 30 years later. Because there's a recognition there in New York and California and other states that it's very difficult for a victim to come forward. And I would respectfully suggest the only reason many of these people are coming forward because they see other victims coming forward. And it gives them some comfort that, hey, I won't be the only one. And I expect more victims will come forward. You know, there's an old saying, it says, a lie has great speed, but truth has endurance. The acts complained of in these cases that we're going to file occurred primarily in New York, either Manhattan or the Hamptons, or occurred in California, primarily in Los Angeles, or in Florida, primarily in Miami. Most of these events and incidents occurred at parties, typically after parties, or album release parties, New Year's Eve parties, 4th of July parties, something they called a puppy party, the all-white party, although several of these events occurred at auditions. Many times, especially young people wanting to break into the industry, were coerced into this type of conduct in the promise of being made a star or in the promise of having Sean Combs listen to their tape or even let them read for Sean Combs. You should know that some of this behavior occurred at well-known venues in New York City. Some of this behavior occurred at private residences of people that we all know. Some of this behavior occurred at hotels that we're all familiar with. You should know that more than 55% of the victims filed reported this conduct to either the authorities, that is the police, or to hospitals. We're in the process of collecting with our team assistants, medical records, reports that were made to the authorities, and I've already said that some of the individuals in this group did in fact talk to the FBI. You should know that several of the individuals, and when I say several, I mean many, who did in fact seek medical treatment were drug tested, and drugs were found in their system, weird drugs that you probably never heard of. One in particular that continues to pop up is a drug called xylazine or trank, which based on our research is known as a horse tranquilizer. Now, there's been a lot of reports that we're filing a class action. This is not a class action. Class action is when one or two people file a case on behalf of a group of people. That's not this. These cases will be individual cases. Each case will live and die on its own merit. These cases will be filed individually, one plaintiff against whoever the defendants were involved in the case. Each case may be filed in one venue like California, another case may be filed in New York. One case may sue just Sean Combs, but multiple other people. One case may sue a range of people. I would expect most, though, to be filed, as I said, in New York and Los Angeles. Now, I know this. Many of you came here thinking or hoping or perhaps believing that I may start naming names. Well, that day will come, but it won't be today. The day will come when we will name names other than Sean Combs, and there's a lot of names. It's a long list already. And of course, I already know who some of these individuals are, but because of the nature of this case, we're going to make damn sure that we're right before we do that. But the names that we're going to name, assuming that our investigators confirm and corroborate what we've been told, are names that will shock you. These are individual cases. There are indeed other perpetrators involved. They will be revealed when that particular individual case is ready to be filed. They already know who they are. And I'm talking here about not just the cowardly but complicit bystanders. That is, those people that we know watched this behavior occur and did nothing. And I'm talking about the people that participated, encouraged it, egged it on. They know who they are. I call them the facilitators of foul play, willing participants in vile conduct. As we identify them, each will be part of this case as defendants. These defendants will not only include individuals, but would also include corporate entities who ultimately profited off of this culture and behavior. I'm looking at banks, pharmaceutical companies, hotels. We know that many of these individuals were paid cash. We know that many of these individuals involved, whether they were the ones being assaulted and abused or they're witnessing other people being assaulted and abused and then paid and threatened and told to leave. Typically paid 10 grand in cash and told to leave. And then threatened as they were leaving. So in addition to Sean Combs, you should know the defendants in these cases we're going to file will include anyone, of course, who engaged in the assault or exploitation, anyone who participated in such in any way, anyone who encouraged or facilitated this conduct, anyone who was in the room and watched it happen but made no effort to stop it, any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on.
This attorney is coming for them all, the facilitators, the watchers. He's put them all on notice that you are not going to get away from this. And particularly even the folks who went to seek medical treatment, you would think there would have been some coalition formed there to go after and say, look, we've got all these people coming in seeking medical treatment, claiming that something happened to them, if in fact they did that at the hospital. All right. We have a lot more to get to, but we do have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to get you back to that news conference about those allegations against Sean Diddy Combs when we return. So keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat to justice. Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. We're following really devastating news, and it's a news conference in Houston, Texas, where two law firms are representing more than 100 people who claim that they were victimized by music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. Some of the allegations date back as far as 1991. Now, of the 120 alleged victims, 60 are males and 60 are females, and 25 of them claim that they were minors when they were sexually exploited. The youngest alleged victim is believed to be just 9 years old. All right, let's get you back now to that news conference.
Any venue or venue owner who was aware of what was going on but failed to stop it, any individual or entity who knew about the conduct and benefited from it but did nothing to report it or stop it, and any individual or entity who covered it up or helped cover it up. These people who know who they are should just come forward now. I would imagine, as we speak here, there are a myriad of people who are very nervous. You can't hide skeletons in the closet forever. I would expect there are many people out there right now who are desperately searching their memories as they delete their texts and data. Now, although these are, in fact, individual cases, there is a common theme, an MO, if you will. Typically, the victim is lured into a situation where he or she is given a drink. Typically, that drink, reported by these victims, is apparently laced with something. Once that drink takes effect, the perpetrators perform all kinds of sexual acts on the victims, many times passing him or her around as other people watch and enjoy the show, and then leave the victim ashamed, confused, injured, and wondering what happened. When the victim reaches out, he or she is told not to say anything. Sometimes there are threats of physical violence or financial repercussions or bodily harm. The claims we intend to bring will include the following: violent sexual assault or rape, sexual abuse, facilitated sex with a controlled substance, false imprisonment, compelling prostitution, sexual misconduct, dissemination of video recordings, false imprisonment, sexual abuse of minors. Given the large volume of cases and given our other docket obligations, and given the fact that we want to be sure when we file these cases that they are fully vetted, I expect we'll start filing these cases against Sean Combs and other perpetrators within the next 30 days. Now, it's rare, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, this type of activity is pervasive in our society, and it's rare we get a chance where we can really focus on this as a country and really focus on this about how pervasive this is and what we can, as collectively can do about it. So I thought I'd take this opportunity.
Yeah, they will be focused on it, that's for sure. But I can't even basically wrap my mind around what they're saying. Let me bring in my guests. Joining us now, criminal defense attorneys Marsha Minot and Marie Peretta here in the studio. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me. Great to see you both. Marsha, I'll start with you. I just want to get your reaction to what we're hearing. There's many levels to this thing. Pick one.
This is like peeling an onion. This is going to be devastating. However, if you notice the numbers and you do the percentage, you have 3,200 individuals that are making allegations. We're down to 120. What that means is that there are going to be people that are making allegations that they're not true. The bigger you make your net, the harder it is for you to be victorious because you're going to have some bad apples in there. That is why this attorney has announced, I'm going to be trying cases in almost every jurisdiction, at least 3 that he's named so far. The minors are my biggest concern. Adults and consenting adults, if there's no drugging going on or no evidence of the drugging going on, you just participated, that's just going to be the issue.
Yeah, Marie, we talked a little earlier that when you start involving minors, it kind of vitiates what we've heard so far as a defense, that this was transactional, these were adults, they might have been consenting for whatever it is that went on. Talk about this inclusion of so many, 25 minors, it's mind-boggling.
25 minors over 2.5 decades. Ruins the defense that his attorney already went on TMZ to voice. That it was a volunteer, not victim situation. There were no penal code transgressions. It was a transaction amongst adults who just wanted freaky sex. That closes the door to that because minors cannot consent to any type of sex, period. So if the minors are verifiable and believable, he's done for, period. There is no defense to that type of rape. None.
This is crazy. No one was immune, it seemed. All right, I want to get back now to more of that news conference.
I want to visit with you real quickly before we close here about some specific instances without disclosing the victim's name. You probably know that depending on the age of the victim, you can file these cases, these individual cases, under Jane Doe or John Doe. Each state is different in that respect. Typically, there is a balancing test, like the public's right to know the name of the victim and plaintiff versus the confidentiality and the safety of the plaintiff. So we'll have to struggle with that with each one of these cases. Our intention, of course, is to, like we always do, file these cases under a pseudonym until the court tells us otherwise. But let me share with you a few, just kind of give you a sense of the kind of cases and the kind of instances that people are calling and reporting that we are trying to corroborate, vet, and these are the ones that we've already corroborated, vetted, and collected evidence on. One individual who was 22 years at the time she was assaulted said that the typical MO at one of these parties that have been widely discussed in the press was that when you were handed a drink, and now we know that the drink is laced with something, if you refused to drink it, you were kicked out of the party. Now, let that sink in for a minute. I mean, the admission to this party was that you had to drink the chosen drink that was handed to you, and now we know that in most cases, I would say 90% of the cases, these individuals were drugged with some sort of drug. That was kind of the MO. Another instance, this individual who was 9 years old at the time was taken to an audition in New York City with Bad Boy Records. Other boys were there to audition as well. All of them were trying to land a record deal. All of them were minors. This individual.
All right, we're going to squeeze in another break here. When we come back, we'll wrap up our coverage of that news conference. We'll keep it here on Court TV.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a former sheriff accused of shooting a judge back in court. Our teams are live from Kentucky with key takeaways from today's huge hearing.
Closing Arguments tonight at 8, 7 Central, only on Court TV.
All right, folks, the news conference on the new sexual assault and sexual exploitation allegations against music mogul Sean Diddy Combs is wrapping up, so let's get back to it.
Sean Combs and several other people at the studio in the promise to both his parents and to him himself of getting a record deal. Another instance, another minor, told allegedly by Sean Combs that he would make him a star, but he needed to visit with him in private about it, away from his parents. Once they were in a private area, allegedly Mr. Combs made the victim perform oral sex upon him. Another incident, an individual 15 years old at the time, flown to New York City to attend a party, was drugged, and then taken into a private room, allegedly in the presence of Mr. Combs, where this female individual, minor, was raped, and then other individuals took turns raping her. Another individual, 26 at the time of the occurrence, was picked up by, allegedly, by Mr. Combs and several other people in a black SUV from the airport, was given one drink in the SUV, and then literally woke up the next day not knowing what had happened, but with pain and damage to both her vagina and her anus, where she then went to the hospital. She was missing her underwear and her shoes. Another instance, an individual, this time not a minor, attended a group dinner, allegedly with Sean Combs in Miami. She wasn't drinking because she was pregnant, but whatever she drank at the table, apparently, at least according to her, was laced with something. She blacked out, and she woke up in the same bed, again, allegedly, with Mr. Combs in his mansion in Miami. Her vagina and her anus were torn and sore. And I could go on. I mean, literally, you're sensing a theme here. It's the same theme, and it all involves some sort of drug. One instance, an individual who was 20 years old at the time was asked to attend, just saw her on the street, asked to attend a party in a hotel. She was flattered, went to the party, was given one drink and doesn't remember anything else. Ultimately, was so messed up, went to the hospital where they found cocaine and this horse tranquilizer in her blood system. I want to give you a quote from a very young man who told us over the phone about his experience and all the things that happened to him, he says, allegedly at the hands of Sean Diddy Combs and his friends in the effort to try to sign a record deal. This was kind of what he was told he would have to do. His quote is, "Had he not been in power, I feel like I could have been something great. I quit the industry because of what Sean Combs did to me." And that's really what it comes down to. We are pursuing this, asking you to support this effort, to encourage witnesses and victims to come forward and bring your evidence So we can continue to break down this wall of silence, and we can continue to have these stories heard. This is the beginning of what I hope to be a national dialogue. This type of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and sexual exploitation should never happen in the United States or anywhere else. This should have never been allowed to go on for so long. This conduct has created a mass of individuals who are injured, scared, and scarred. If you are one of those individuals, we ask you to reach out. If not to us, to someone you trust. If you are someone who witnessed any of these events, we ask you to reach out. Your name can remain confidential. With that, I'll take a few questions, not many, maybe two, but if you have a question, I'll be pleased to try to answer it.
All right, kudos to Tony Buzbee and his firms for taking this on. This isn't light work, number one, and number two, could be dangerous. Let's bring back in our guests, still with us, criminal defense attorneys Marcia Minot and Marie Pereira. And there's so much to get to, but I want to start with the criminal case and perhaps the ramifications there. We heard him say that some of the victims in this case have spoken to the FBI. This sounds so much more like a criminal enterprise than anything we saw in the R. Kelly case. So I'm not going to object to the fact that they're using RICO to go after him in the FBI. But your thoughts on the ramifications for the criminal case at this point?
I think it would only affect the criminal case as it pertains to these alleged minors. If the indictment does not have the minors listed, the law enforcement has the opportunity to re-indict. A lot of individuals don't understand that even if the RICO charge has already dropped and an indictment has been dropped and these individuals turn over additional evidence as associated with these minors, that the law enforcement can affect that case by a re-indictment. And now you see more counts and you see more alleged victim, which is going to make it even harder for him to see the light of day as it pertains to a conviction.
Yeah, as Marie mentioned earlier, it makes the defense so much harder. And I guess you might be wondering what Sean Combs's response to this has been. Well, through his attorney, Erica Wolf's response said basically Combs cannot address every meritless allegation in what has become a reckless media circus. That said, Mr. Combs emphatically and categorically denies as false and defamatory any claim that he sexually abused anyone, including minors. He looks forward to proving his innocence and vindicating himself in court if and when claims are filed and served, where the truth will be established based on evidence, not speculation. What do you make of that statement? Sounds very similar to his other statement in his criminal case.
He is presumed innocent until found guilty in a court of law by a jury of his peers beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's not forget that.
Yes.
But I have to say that the issue with the minors becomes a major problem in his plan of defense as voiced by his attorneys. Anyone close to this situation, the closer you are to effectuating these allegations, the more vulnerable you are to being prosecuted as well. We're talking about the bookers, the people who book the flights, the people who purchase the baby oil. The closer you are to the act and all the steps it took to drug those people and rape them, the more vulnerable you are. You have issues here.
Yeah, let's talk about that vulnerability. We heard the enablers, perhaps the sponsors going as far as maybe beverage companies. We know he has a lot of connections to those, the silent accomplices. What is their exposure, Marcia, as far as this is concerned? Let's stick to the civil part at this point.
As it pertains to the civil case, you have to have some nexus, some connection between the sponsors and the parties. It can't just be that I'm sponsoring a party and I'm providing alcohol and my alcohol might be purchased because Puff Daddy is a famous individual. It has to be my representative was present in the room, or that I had an individual that videotaped it, that worked for me, that is really connected to me. But some far-fetched individual that is just participating in the party that doesn't work for me as a sponsor, you're going to have a tough time getting a sponsor involved in a case, because where do you draw the line? Does that go to my party? Does it go to parties at homes? If my alcohol is served at a party where a minor is raped or a minor is assaulted, where do you draw that line regarding liability? It's going to be tough to bring in those big sponsors unless you have some strong evidence that they actively participated in whatever parties we're talking about where minors were harmed.
Yeah, and if you bring them in, the stakes get much higher, the fight gets much harder, you need much more money, the money they can throw at these things, it really becomes a whole different ballgame at this point. Marie, with your medical background, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that many of these victims, according to the attorney, went to see doctors. There were reports of rapes. My question is, if one, and many of them may not have said anything, but if just one says this happened at a Diddy party, you would expect some kind of follow-up. That's their job, right? They have a duty to do that.
It's always been their job, but we're talking about allegations dating back to 2.5 decades ago. It was a different vibe. There was no Me Too. It was like you signed up for it, you're a fan, and if you have to lay on the couch and take that to get to your dreams, that's it. That is not a crime. You went to the party? It was a lot of prejudgment at that time in our society. Now, they would be listened to. And now, if they can prove that those people did the outcry and it was not listened to and they were ignored, it makes a strong case. The outcry was there, society didn't listen, and now we're listening. It's never too late. That's why they changed the statute of limitations for the people who experienced these horrific crimes.
Yeah, it's a good thing. You know, they have that national conversation that the attorney talked about. Hopefully we'll continue to make progress in that area. I want to thank Marsha Minot and Marie Pedetta for being with us tonight. Always a real pleasure to have you ladies on the show. Thank you so much.